All right, I'm live for real this time. So, yeah, we just had a good little 5 minute conversation and thought we were live and realized I am not live. So, welcome back officially this time to episode 2 of the Breeders Playbook with Reese from House of Reps. And today's guest is going to be Frank from Geekygecko. If you've ever been on YouTube researching leopard geckos at any point, then you've definitely come across this guy's videos at some point. And I'm sure he's taught a lot of breeders that work in industry today or hobby today at least a thing or two at some point. I know when I first started, I definitely watched his videos and learned a couple of things. And so I know a couple of people as well. So we're going to bring him on. And 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait, I lied. Why can't I work this now? There we go. All right. Welcome, my dude.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. We just had a nice 5-minute conversation thinking we were live. We were already rolling into some good topics.
It's been a good 5-minute conversation. I look over, I'm like, we're not streaming, bud.
That's funny, but we are now, though, right?
Yeah. So I guess let's try to recreate that conversation.
All right, let's see how close we can get to.
How's your season going this year? And what are some things that you're doing new for the 2026 season that you haven't done in the past? Just elaborate a little bit of what's new and what's taking place this season for you.
Infamous, what's up, man? Starting to see people in the chat. So I'm only focused on breeding my highest end stuff right now. So super nice white and yellows, nice tangerines, nice black knights, as well as my black knight outcrosses, which is something that we were talking about before we realized we weren't live. And then I'm sure you've heard of my Oreo McFlurry Mr. Freeze Fasciolatus Max Snow Eclipse project. So I actually just paired up a couple geckos there. White and yellow snows, white and yellow Max Snow type stuff. You can't go wrong with those animals because, like I was telling you, I have a lot of animals. I'm still downsizing from holdbacks and
just saying from 2 years ago. You're still
animals from 2 years ago that I
so
thought
in the last 2 years you haven't been breeding as much as people thought, right?
Oh yeah, no. So
you haven't. Okay, cool.
To recap, probably 3 seasons ago, I probably produced the most leopard geckos ever for me in one season, which was probably 1,000 plus geckos. I don't remember the exact number. That was just in one season. At that time, it was wild. We were hatching 50 geckos every 3 days. So
that's nuts.
Yeah. So the geckos that I'm selling now and running 50% sales on and stuff, a lot of those geckos I was holding over because, okay, here's something about me that I'm going to need to change. And I will do this heading into the future is I want to hold on to every gecko until it hits subadulthood, because that's when I can see, are its colors holding? Do I want to hold this gecko back? Some geckos look ugly as babies, then they get really nice. Some geckos look really nice as babies, then they get ugly. And I also don't want to overcharge customers, right? I don't want to charge them $1,000 for a black knight at 3 months old that's going to lose its blackness by the time it's 6 months old. So that's another problem of mine is I was just holding everything back, and now I'm downsizing.
Yeah, so just holding everything to maximize each.
Holding everything to maximize, yeah.
And so that didn't really benefit you in a weird way, though, right?
It did not. It did not.
It did when it came to the projects, but as far as the overall infrastructure of what you got going on, how much of a headache was it compared to the positive of it?
Yeah, huge headache. Still a headache, I put on 60 pounds worth of a headache over the last 3 years over this stress, and I'm just now getting to a point where I am rebalancing my life, because I think that work-life balance and the hobby gets real tricky in there. If the hobby is your work, that work-life hobby balance, it needs to be in play, or else you're not going to be happy. Your animals probably aren't going to be happy. Your significant other and your family members aren't going to be happy, Yeah, I decided to dump so much time and effort into maintaining such a large operation, and the expenses ate it all up, because when you maintain an operation of that size, the amount of mealworms that I was ordering last year was like 120,000 a week. That's like $500, $600 a week worth of just mealworms. That's not even talking about electricity, the other animals I have, you know, and all that stuff. So I'm in a huge downsizing phase right now, and it feels good. I was able to get to the gym today and get a workout in, and starting to make it my goal to shed some pounds, spend more time with my wife and family. So
it's positive on the lifestyle, but
yeah.
What about the positive for the babies and the geckos?
Positive for the babies is
right. You're able to upgrade those little tubs that you had before to the better ones now.
Yeah. So positive on the babies is I heard Matt tell you this recently. I never heard him say this, so I'm not trying to steal this from him. But back when I first started, about in 2018, 2019,
I've heard you say it before in the video.
Yeah, I had an idea in mind, which was quantity produces quality. So one of the benefits of producing so many animals over the last few years is I have a vast amount of really high quality animals that popped out of that I have held back to put back into the breeding operation, so that I did not have to purchase those animals up front. You know, the business strategy of some people coming in like Pico Gecko, they spent a lot of money up front investing in a lot of high quality animals, and then just started reproducing from there. But what I did was I sort of made my own
your own genetic library.
Yeah, over time. Yeah. But to do that, I started hatching and keeping way more geckos than I could reasonably hold on to. Plus my desire to see everything grow into adulthood. And I really don't like, this is a kind of a pet peeve of mine, I really don't like taking photos of young geckos, because when I send that, because if that gecko doesn't sell for 3 months, it might look completely different. Its whole pattern might have changed. And when the customer receives it, they might be upset because they don't realize that leopard gecko patterns can change. And
so you don't take hatchling photos at all?
No.
That's crazy. See, I do that. I mean, I take photos of all stages. I try to keep up with all stages, just to show sometimes like maybe a drastic change. You can be like, look, this is what it used to look like versus now. Or even like showing it as a baby. Customers like the baby pictures. Like
I think that's
so you can show them like this is what it looked like as a baby, and this is what your baby looks like now. So I definitely think you do need those hatchling photos just for record's sake sometimes. And this is like a whole nother topic on it, but because of that, that's how a lot of people forget what sometimes a gecko is. If it's like if it's a possible snow and possible white and yellow, or something like that, that maybe if you had the hatchling photo, we could help identify it, but we don't. So now it's going to remain a possibility until it's proven otherwise. You know what I mean? So I think just for record's saking, it's good for, you have a lot. So I definitely understand that. I'm not saying like, damn you for not taking hatchling photos. You got a lot. I would, at some point I would be like, I'm done. I'm not taking photos either. It's too much, but definitely with lower people, lower numbered people, definitely I think you should take hatchling photos just for record taking, and just, you might get something really cool. And like you said, you want to recreate that look from when it was younger, and, something like that. But it definitely,
and it makes for a really good video. Did you see my video where I did the progression of color change in leopard geckos to show people what that looks like? So I think that's fantastic that you're doing that. And if you have the capability, you definitely want to. But yeah, I learned my lesson with Max Snows, because some Max Snows are obviously very apparent, right, as a baby. But as they grow up, some Max Snows, you don't know if you didn't mark the tub specifically. So I learned my lesson a couple years ago. I mark every tub now when the baby's a Max Snow, so that I know. And I saw Infamous mention about, so funny story about rainbow mealworm.
He couldn't get any worms because of USC.
Yeah, but I go to, so by the way, anybody looking who buys mealworms in bulk from Rainbow, they have this service called Southwest Air Cargo, where you go to Southwest and you pick it up for $60 shipping. You'll get the animal, you'll get the worms same day. So they send it at like 9 o'clock in the morning, the flight leaves, and by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's in your state and you could go pick it up from the airport. And it's only $60 for up to 90 to it, for really like 100,000 worms is only $60. So I go there one time and I say, hey, I'm here to pick up my worms. It was like 90,000 worms that I was going to pick up. He's like, are you here to pick up the 3 boxes or the 3 packs of 3? Because you know how they do 10,000 per box. So it's 30,000 per stack, and it was 3 stacks. He's like, are you here to pick up the 3 stacks or the pallet? And I was like, wait, did you say pallet of mealworms? He said, yeah, there's a fish and tackle guy up in northern Arizona who orders a pallet at a time, which is, I think he said it was like 1,500,000 worms at a time this guy orders. And I was like, oh, this is why I can't order worms sometimes.
Yeah, he's probably using it for bait or something, but
he's a wholesaler distributor, so he sells it to all the country, all the stores in this region for himself.
Yeah, so all the wholesalers are why we couldn't get any worms.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all the resellers are flipping mealworms, dude.
But I was like, man, I couldn't imagine getting that many mealworms.
This camera sucks.
But yeah, so I'm just working on the bare essential projects. So like even this year, so like 3 seasons ago, I probably would have had dozens of geckos paired up by now when I was looking to produce a lot of geckos. But right now, I think I only have like less than 10 females paired up at this point. And I'm cleaning the entire operation right now and looking for girls that are ovulating. And even if a girl's ovulating, a couple years ago where I made a mistake was I was like, you know what? Yeah, if she's ovulating, I'm going to breed her and I'll make the baby and I'll worry about selling it later. And what happened was I just became so bogged down and swamped down with things that I wasn't able to move geckos at a pace that was realistic or sustainable at that point. And I was holding on to animals too long and things just got way out of hand, you know? So
what are some of the projects then that you're dialing down on? I know for one, it's going to be your Mandarin Inferno stuff, you know?
Yeah, I do like the Mandarin Inferno.
The fire project, or what's it called?
And out of my Mandarin Inferno, I have 2 reddish orange kind of lines. One of them is called Fire. The other one is called Red Dragon. And they are just, they're just lines of Mandarin Inferno where the animals that are in that project are of deeper saturation. Now, we talked about this with the Black Knight. Just because you take 2 black animals doesn't mean all the offspring are going to be black. And just because you take 2 really orange animals doesn't mean all the offspring are going to be really orange. Usually what I tell people is like 25% of the babies will be better than the parents, 50% of the babies will be similar to the parents, and 25% of the babies will be worse than the parents. That's not an exact guideline, but that's kind of just like a general guideline that I tell people of like what to realistically expect out of a pairing.
But what projects are you working on, Frank?
Got you. You're trying to get an answer out of me.
Yes.
So, Oreo McFlurry, baby.
All right, that's it. That's your main one.
So I really love Tangerine White and Yellow.
Okay.
I really love Max Snow Fasciolatus. As far as my Black Knights is concerned, you asked me, do I have when we were not live and we were talking about this?
Yeah, I was about to segue back into that for a second.
Your question to me was, how do you get Black Knights darker, or do you have any, do you have any strategies for what I do to try to get Black Knights darker more consistently or whatever? And for me, that's the Afghanicus. You probably heard me mention this. That's my obsidian project, because for anybody who works with pure Afghanicus, they're almost like a perfect match for Black Knight. Number one, they are a smaller subspecies. They're naturally smaller than your average Macularis or Montanus or Turkmenicus or Fasciolatus.
Smaller by how much? Like grams?
10-15%. Yeah, grams. So I would say at least 10-15% smaller on average than like a Turkmenicus Turkmenicus and Fasciolatus, to me, are the biggest and the longest of the subspecies that are commonly interbred. We're not talking about Angraminu, because that's the subspecies that's not commonly interbred with Macularis. But yeah, of the Macularises, I would say Fasciolatus and Turkmenicus are like the biggest, like the longest and the lankiest, so to speak. Or at least the Fasciolatus is long and lanky. The Turkmenicus is kind of not necessarily lanky, but it is a little bit longer than your average Macularis. And one of the reasons for that might be because of how much we have inbred the macularis just naturally over the last 40 years. So I don't know if that locality in the wild would be bigger than a traditional macularis locality, but in captivity, you know,
But what about like
but
charcoal,
Afghanicus is definitely
black
smaller.
pearl, stuff like that?
The what?
What about like charcoal and black pearl and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
so that was what I was saying before we got cut off earlier, was when I was first getting into Black Knights, whether I just didn't notice or not, charcoal and black pearl in those things, I just wasn't seeing consistently available dark animals. So that's why I invested in the Black Knight. And Black Knight really reigned for like the last 5-6 years. But now John from Gecko Boa and other people are starting to bring forward some pretty commendable charcoals and other melanistic geckos.
1 second too.
Yeah.
You're kind of going crazy right now.
Okay.
But let's backtrack. My initial question for that, because I wasn't, I didn't say it on here, but on the other one. So the initial question, so other people can understand what we're trying to talk about right now, or my question the first time where we thought we were live. What are other good outcrosses for Black Knight that aren't just Black Knight? So that way you have something else to outcross without trying to find an unrelated Black Knight to outcross it to for more inbreeding, but something else that can give you the same look, but being different without being a morph or a line. You know what I'm saying? So as he was answering over here, Afghanicus, Turkmenicus. So
not Turkmenicus.
I just wanted to back up and say that so people understood a little bit more as we talk about that.
Yeah. Turkmenicus and Fasciolatus are better for Max Snow or Lavender White projects, but Afghanicus is good for darker projects because anybody who has an Afghanicus knows that they have a lot of spotting. The spotting is really dark, and their yellow coloration is darker than a normal like macularis. Yeah, regular macularis. So they're just darker as a whole and smaller. So that was one of the reasons why I personally wanted to outcross Black Knight into that, also to diversify genetics. You know, outcrossing is good to diversify genetics, especially if it's a subspecies. You're really diversifying genetics then. But what I would say is Black Knight is a polygenetic trait, meaning that it plays off of other polygenetic traits in other lines or projects. So I'm sure you've seen people who have like the dark tangerine lines. Well, there's something in those dark tangerine lines where somewhere in the genetic code of those animals, it's already coding for darkness. So now if you were to take that and pair that to a Black Knight, which is coding for a lot of darkness, you're already one step ahead compared to an animal that is not coding for darkness, like Turkmenicus and Fasciolatus. I actually scrapped my Black Knight Fasciolatus and my Black Knight Turkmenicus projects for the most part, because you're starting like way behind the starting line, if that makes sense, compared to when you're starting with darker animals. You're going to achieve your goal much quicker.
That does make sense, because like we were talking about before on other podcasts and on the phone, but remember when you're breeding, you know, for everybody else, when you're breeding and you put things together, you're not adding, you're subtracting. So even when he's taking these things together, he's subtracting from both of them and coming with a lesser animal or lesser expression of what he was trying to do. So then we got to add on top, bring it back and put more into it to get that expression. So is that what was happening as you were pairing it? You were getting worse looking geckos than better looking geckos, and it would take more time to add more darkness back to get to where you wanted to be. So that makes sense. So sometimes people got to pay attention to what they're doing and understand how the genes work. I always say you got to understand how the genes work. They're all ingredients. Each one has a different taste. Combined with different things makes a different flavor. Same thing with the genetics. So you got to figure out how they interact with stuff and then kind of balance it out and kind of predict your projects from that. So it's good that you did that, because now hopefully nobody will, you know, start from behind the starting line like you were. But
and I still might work. So I still might work this project out in the future. But one thing I was excited for, which didn't pan out, was black, night, white, and yellow. You're taking the opposite of both worlds. And what I had in my mind was, what if we could get like a dark animal that had, you know how white and yellow like highlights around the patterns and stuff sometimes? I was thinking, would that be possible? But the first generation I produced were ugly as crap. And I was like,
Dude, I hear that a lot about the white and yellow black knight stuff. Me and Junior talk about it a lot. Everybody says it's not good looking, but I do exactly what you're talking about. Like this light back here, I envision something like that, like a darker animal, but a highlighted pattern around the darker animal.
Yeah. And it might be possible, but
with a lot of line breeding, I think it might be.
And I'm downsizing right now, so I just don't have the space or capability to do it. But that's where working with other breeders and being familiar and friends with other people in the hobby is really beneficial, because then you can watch those projects evolve if somebody else is working on them, you know?
See, so we're going to segue into something else. So like you said, we got people to talk to and see how other people do projects and stuff. And it's always good to see people doing other projects, because that's what they're passionate about. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be the same project. But it's crazy because I see this a lot. You're a person that I saw go through the same thing but persevered. But a lot of people I've been seeing, man, ever since I got into it, every year, there's people that get out because of other people. They kind of stop doing what they love to do because other people are bullying them or constantly want to comment or have negativity comments towards them or something. But I just don't understand it, how you can let other people dictate what you're passionate about. Because for me, I didn't get into any of this because I knew you on YouTube or John, right? I didn't know anything about a leopard gecko before I wanted to breed a leopard gecko and start doing this. I wanted to work with animals. This was a good way to do that in a small scale. So it helped me bridge that to work with animals. But I'll be damned, dude, if I got people telling me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Like, that's crazy to me. And so that's what I do want to highlight about you, because I know you've gone through that, and you're still here doing what you love, and you didn't give up. You didn't let people, kick you out, and you're still here. You're making changes. You're still trying to stick with it without fighting back. You kind of can't beat them, join them type of situation. So it's good though. It don't always have to be a fight. So it's good that people can learn to come together. But have you seen people go through that as well in your experience of like people getting bullied out just because of other people's comments, or you don't even know these people in person, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't pay my bills. I can turn off Instagram and never see another comment, in my life, and just work with the animals, So I don't understand why people can't do that more. Do you maybe have an answer, maybe why some people just give up instead of just doing it for themselves?
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I really like about what you're trying to do, is just trying to create a positive atmosphere where people can enjoy this hobby. And I think that's the first place that people go wrong, is they forget about the passion for the animals, and it becomes about ego. Am I the best? What are people saying about me? And it also becomes about money. How much money can I make? All of those things, and if you focus on those things, it's going to distract you from having joy, and then a lot of people wind up leaving and whatnot.
I feel like maybe a lot of people get caught up in their head, I guess, with it, but I feel like that's the whole point of the animals at the end of the day, is to relax, decompress with your animals. They bring you joy, hang out with them, because just what we talked about this before, at the end of the day, these are pets. They're always going to be pets. We breed them. It's a competitive market for that, but they're still pets. At the end of the day, that's what they are.
Yeah, and a big lesson I learned over the last few years is because we are working with pets, we have to be really careful with the way we interact with others, and also what we put on social media and how we portray the animals. Like, I hate watching the people in Florida where they're like catching iguanas and doing all kinds of cruel things to them. Like, nobody wants to see cruel things happen to animals, or even the hint of cruelty, right? And so
they're not even dead; they're alive. They're just in a state of chillness. But
and so one of the things that I came to realize is that drama is not good for making sales, and it's not good for building bridges in this hobby particularly. When we look at like the political world or people who report on politics, they actually want to create drama because there are people in their fan base and stuff that want to promote the drama and stuff, and that's how those people are making their living and making their money. But I think I told you this before, is as reptile breeders, we don't make our money off of drama. We make our money off of good reputations, healthy animals, and building bridges with people in the hobby. That's where we make our reputation. So one of the mistakes I made early on, there was nobody on YouTube making leopard gecko videos. And I got a little arrogant thinking, hey, I'm new, but I'm the #1 person making videos on leopard geckos. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. You know, this is when I first started making videos, like 2019, 2020, you know, and terrible approach to come into a hobby with. I should have checked in with the elders. I should have submitted myself to the people that came before me. And what made things worse was I was gathering the most amount of views for the leopard gecko hobby on social media compared to all these people that had been in the hobby for decades before me. And instead of like submitting myself to them, when I would try to, like when they would try to offer me critique or something like that, and I would be like obstinate and not receive that feedback, it did not help me build a bridge with the people who came before me. And it almost made me even more, I don't want to call it the what?
Disconnected.
It made me more disconnected with them to the point where I became like, okay, well, if you don't want to play with me, I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, but doing it even louder. You know what I mean? And I would make videos and I would say things that, you know, I would never be like cursing people out or anything, but I would say things that I know would trigger that group of people, because it was sort of a way for me to get back at them for like not letting me in, so to speak, when I felt like I deserved to be let in. But nobody deserves anything in this world. And humility is the biggest way to get yourself into any circle, so to speak. You know, so although I would say that, you know, sometimes it goes both ways. You know, it's not just like
it does. I was gonna touch on that because you said like you have to like bow down to the elders or whatever. Not necessarily, man. I don't feel like that. Like you definitely gotta show respect due to the people that paved the way for us to do what we do or know what we know, because now we can go further and not have to backtrack and do what they did. But not everything always has to be so black and white. You know, there is going to be different ways to do things, and it sometimes takes a new person to figure out that new way and go against the grain. So it's not always super bad, but definitely the approach, you know, when people are trying to help out, you could have respected the opinions a little bit better and, you know, not fight.
I could have definitely been more careful around that.
But everybody learns lessons, you know what I mean? We're not going to harp on it. You're still a very nice guy. Like I've said, other people say you're a very nice guy. You're not a liar. You're a little bit too honest, maybe that, and that could get you in trouble sometimes too. But I don't see you doing slimy stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're a good guy. So
that was a big frustrating part for me too, because behind the scenes, I'm just like, man, I'm just trying to get along with people, but people like
for sure. But like you said, it becomes retaliation. You're retaliating against them, and then somebody else is going to be like, well, you know what? Well, I'm going to say something else that's going to piss that guy off. You know, so it was kind of a little tennis match between the hobby and you probably.
And also, let me say this too, because this will kind of segue into the bullying topic. Is
we already segued into that, fool?
Yeah, we already segued into that.
We're in it. We're in it.
The leopard gecko hobby and the reptile hobby as a whole is not always the easiest to integrate yourself into, because there are a lot of really
opinionated people.
Yeah, I was gonna say dogmatic opinions, but for people who don't know what dogmatic is, it means that you have to do it this way or else. And when I came in, I was like wanting to experiment and challenge the status quo. And sometimes that's good. That's how society evolves and expands. But there's a price to pay with that too, is you're going to ruffle the feathers of the people that have been there before you if they don't agree with what you're saying or what you're doing. And so there's always there's a sacrifice that you're making in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And, you know, could I look back and be like, yeah, I could have done things differently to try to be more submissive and try to get along with people more? Absolutely. You know, and so there's always improvement that you could make looking back. Going back to the producing too many animals thing, that's another improvement I would make. Is
For sure.
I got laid off during COVID from my job, and I already had a lot of animals. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to go full time. Probably the worst decision I could ever make, because to go from not having consistent sales to thinking that you can automatically make consistent sales because you have just because you have animals. I said to myself, I was like, I got 300 animals to sell. Like, I'll sell them and I'll make money. I got a little bit of savings. I'll make it work. And to some degree, I did make it work. But then I would do it differently going back. I would maintain a part or full-time job until my business was sustainably showing me a consistent amount of sales that I could rely upon. And then I would slowly grow from there, compared to just making 1,000 geckos in one season and throwing it into the wind and being like, I'll figure it out. That was what I did, was I'll figure it out.
Some people get away with it, man, and more power to them, but it doesn't work for everybody. And at least you got to know when to bow out. Like you were saying, it's time to downsize. It's getting too much. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so at least you're doing that and not riding it till the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you gotta look at the good with the bad. You know what I mean? So
when you have that many animals, you have to do what you got to do to house them, and they're going to be in smaller enclosures than you would like for them to see. And so as I downsize, another thing that I would like to see is, like, I generally want to feel good about the way my animals are in my operation. Even, you know, because some of them are breeders, which are here for life, you know, and some of them, for the most part, right? And some of them are animals that are growing up and they might not sell for 6 months. So it's like the condition that they're in for those 6 months, I personally want to feel good about the way they're living. And so that's what I'm working on right now is I just want all of my animals to be housed in a situation where I don't feel bad about, you know, or I don't feel like I could be doing better, you know.
I think the customer also would like that too, to know they went from a good house to
100%,
you know, versus always, because a lot of people are always skeptical and scared of getting something from something bad. So you want to always give them the best possible before they go on to their forever home somewhere else. But this does want segue me into something else, as we were talking about before. I have noticed a lot of people do this too. Like they'll complain about, oh, my geckos don't sell, my geckos don't move, nobody, you know, sees my stuff, or, you know, a lot of complaints. But
your gecko's waving at us behind you.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I felt like that was worth stopping. Who is?
Yeah, she's always doing that. Yeah.
That's cool. It goes lovely animals.
It goes back to marketing yourself and how much effort you put into marketing yourself. Like, you put in a lot of effort marketing yourself, even with all the hurdles you've had to go through.
Yeah,
you just got to market harder and go harder. So I just think that's a little advice to some people. Just market more, man. If you're not moving geckos, you're not getting interactions, you're not getting conversations, then I think you need to start the conversation. Go market more, figure out, take better photos, focus or upgrading on something, you know what I mean? Instead of just complaining, because not everybody's going to be the same as everybody else. You know, some people, like I said, they just got it on lock. They've been here for a long time. They're doing their thing. You're never going to touch them. So all you can do is get as good as you can at what you're doing to either compete or just at least be in the conversation. So I just think, what are some things that you do that market yourself a little bit better each year? Or do you do the same marketing all the time? Do you try to switch up your marketing strategies for yourself? And I don't mean just for sales, just like in general, you know what I mean? Just for yourself, your company.
Well, that's a good topic you bring up, because that's how I was able to survive over these last few years through the challenges and the hurdles, was social media. You know, and that's part what led to my arrogance early on was I got the largest leopard gecko channel on the planet, like breeder channel. So there are breeder channels and there are keeper channels.
Yeah,
The channel Leopard Gecko, which is that lady from London or the UK with her accent, great channel, but that's a keeper channel. Jessica's Animal Friends, keeper channel. I was a breeder channel. Breeding channels are very, very hard to grow, because you're growing a breeding channel.
It's more of a niche,
There's a niche within a niche within a niche.
Interested, in making geckos lay eggs. So only so many people find it interesting.
And that's one thing I would like to see leopard geckos get on social media more. So that was one area though that really benefited me because I had that area on lock, which was YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. Do you know what the first is? Google. And do you know if you do a Google search, what they promote at the very top? YouTube. Usually a YouTube video if you're doing like a how-to. So when I first started making YouTube videos, I did how-to videos, which was like how to breed leopard geckos, how to know morphs, how to set up a breeder tub. Because the reason those videos are good is because people are literally searching for those information. And so that will naturally lead people to your YouTube channel. But from there,
what made you want to start like teaching stuff though? What made you, instead of just like showing a gecko and being like, this is cool, versus like, this is how you do this and set this up? What was the difference for you? What made you want to educate versus just showing stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. What made me actually want to start making videos? I think to some degree, I enjoy being a teacher or like an online personality. I've also like in my private life, and this is another reason why I had to check myself and how I was behaving and doing an internal critique is I lead and have led Bible studies, men's groups, and things like that. So I felt like I was gifted with this ability to communicate, a passion, or I should say an ability to communicate the things that I'm passionate about. And the Bible is one of those things, as well as reptiles and specifically leopard geckos. So it just came naturally that when I first started just diving deep into leopard geckos and I said, I am going to make a run of this. I'm going to build a company. And when I retire, I'll do it full time. That was my mindset, was when I retire, I will do it sort of like in retirement as like a way to make extra money. But I never thought that I would be focusing on breeding reptiles for an actual living, which is, where I'm at right now. And as I downsize, I might get to the point where I need more income to support my life expenses. And I might have to get a full-time job or a part-time job besides the reptiles. I'm kind of in the process of figuring all of that out right now, but it came natural. I just had a desire that I love leopard geckos and I love to share what I'm learning and also what I know and I actually really enjoyed editing videos. I don't know if you enjoy editing videos, but sometimes I enjoy editing so I enjoyed just that whole process,
Depends on the editing. Sometimes I'm editing a video and then it messes up the whole video and you gotta start over. That's when I'm like,
it can be stressful. Throw
the whole phone away and just start over. But
I've been through a lot of. I remember one time I was editing a video while working full time, and I finished editing the video at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I had to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So I literally just like lied down, closed my eyes for 30 minutes, and then woke up to go to work. That's how dedicated I was to making videos, and also consistency. So not only passion and dedication, but you need consistency. You can't just, especially in a niche like we're in that doesn't get a lot of views to begin with.
That's very true.
You can't just release one video once in a while and do it lollygolly. Like you got to be consistent.
That's my style, lollygolly. I'm over here lollygolly.
Oh, here's a tip too for anyone trying to grow a channel. when I was researching how to grow a YouTube channel, it's the same for all different kinds of topics. You know what I mean? So if you follow a content creator that is teaching you how to grow a YouTube channel, you don't have to learn that from a reptile YouTuber. You could learn the techniques that he's applying from other YouTubers that are growing their channel. So one of the things they said was look up topics related to your niche. So I started looking up leopard gecko. What are the top trending topics for leopard geckos? How to breed leopard geckos, how to keep leopard geckos, how to feed leopard geckos. Why is my leopard gecko gray? You know, you and I, this is a rudimentary topic, but I still have customers to this day that will text me back a couple days after they get their gecko. Oh no, my gecko's gray. Is it dying? You know, and I just have to humbly, kindly explain to them, like, yeah, you know.
So, I just had a customer hit me up and they're like, he's eating his skin. Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's fine.
Those are silly topics for us, but if they'll get you views and grow your channel, why not do it? You know, so
for sure. I always felt like there was already that information out there for me personally. So I think I've told you before. So I don't like doing that stuff, even though like it does generate content and stuff like that. I just don't want to add to the melting pot of content.
No, but you do. You do though. That's what you want.
I want rewatchable content. I want value content. So even if it like it may not even take off, you know, like Strength and Leos was forever ago, kind of, but it's still a staple for my learning. You know what I mean? And so maybe this one day will be a staple for somebody else's learning 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But I don't expect it to boom now for me. But it just want rewatchable value content. I don't want the brain rot stuff. I don't want to make it. Sometimes I do because you'd be in a silly mood, but to be constantly pumping it out, I don't want to do that because it's just going to be a mental headache for myself. So like you talked about the work-life balance, I try to keep a balance of that type of stuff. So there's days where I'm not going to mess with content because I just want to chill and not worry about that. So I don't want to rope myself into that constant having to do something. Sometimes I will at late at night, I'll get like that and I'll start posting a bunch of stuff, but I don't want to be like my everyday, I got to film this, film that, film this, film, you know what I mean? So I want to have stuff that's like legit planned out. We can rewatch it. Somebody else can rewatch it, learn something new. Like a lot of people watch shows, rewatch them and find something new, but they've seen it 18 times. Like I just watched Jerry Springer the other day. No, Jerry Seinfeld. It's not Springer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Seinfeld. I was watching Seinfeld the other day and something happened. I was like, I've seen this show literally maybe 10 times from beginning to end. And I didn't never notice this one scene that just happened, you know, within 10 different watches. So, you know, somebody can maybe pick up something in the future from your video, my video. So,
yeah, I mean, when I first came when I first started being really committed was around 2018, 2019. And when I first started like researching leopard geckos again, later on in life was about 2016. There was really nobody making up-to-date videos. I was watching old Matt Boronik videos. And so this is the one critique I'll make to what you just said a second ago. And everybody has to choose their lane because you have to be happy with the time that you're putting in because it takes a lot of time and effort to make videos. And I think that your trajectory and the decision you made to make unique content and whatnot is great. But sometimes it's also great. For example, let's say somebody's doing how to breed leopard geckos and 2 videos pop up. One video from 2025 and one video from 2016, 10 years prior. They're going to probably watch the 2025 video just because it's newer, even though it's the same topic.
I knew you were going there because instantly I was like, I'm going to watch the new one first. So
yeah. So that's what I just started doing was I started creating newer videos. And there's a little trick to that too, which I think you probably already know is sometimes people will even put at the end of the video 2025 or 2026. They'll put in the title the year that it is, so that people, when they're searching and scrolling and that thumbnail pops up on their feed, they see, oh, breeding leopard geckos 2026. I haven't watched this video before. Let me see if anything has changed. Because sometimes people just want to watch a newer video to see if there's been innovations or new information that has come to the hobby.
And that's me, and that's why I'm so weird with like the content. I know a lot of other people too. Is just, I don't want to just repeat the same stuff as other people, but there is sometimes new information that you might get from a newer video. So
for sure,
it is good to update. So I have watched all the stuff, but there's not many people making stuff. So now it's like we're the ones that got to make it for other people to watch. But it's like, I want to sit and be lazy and watch a video. Somebody else make one. So me and Infamous over here, we do that back and forth. Like, you making a video yet? Nah, but you making a video yet? Yeah, I'm going to post it later. So we try to keep each other on our toes with that. So I get it for sure.
Yeah. And the good thing about you guys, I think both you guys keep breeders in 28 courts, right? I think both you and Infamous. That's great, because a lot of breeders in 2026 would have trouble showing their leopard geckos if their leopard geckos are in like 6 to 10 courts, because a lot of people don't want to see that anymore. Like the trend of seeing geckos in or animals like snakes or geckos in tubs, that trend is kind of sailing a little bit. So 28 quart tubs is
so
good though.
Funny because there's like a cross of what you're saying. So like I'm seeing people now like wanting to cohab ball pythons more and do cohab other animals more versus like the leopard geckos where everybody was trying to cohab and group breed. We're trying to separate those guys, keep them separate and have a better life. So it's just funny. It's just an observation. It's not like a point for anything, but it's just funny how life works that way. Like everybody was told to keep them this way. And now the controversy is in the wild, they're hanging out together. And when I saw Dave Kaufman's, I think, video on the ball, I think he did a video on ball pythons, right? Like
in Africa.
Yeah, in Africa. And every time they showed them, they were in piles everywhere together. Because I always thought, like, why couldn't we house two together? You know, if they had enough space. It doesn't make any sense. They don't eat each other. But I was like, and I see in the videos, they kind of hang out, just sitting there. So I don't know, but I didn't do it anyway. I still kept them separate. But it's just funny how the hobby sometimes will make that change. And just depends on what era of the hobby you're in. You know, if you want to conform or not, like you didn't want to conform. So but some people can conform and just make
I wanted to blaze my own trail. And that I did, ablaze a fire.
Find some rubber there, dude.
And kind of just to piggyback off that for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think replicating the wild is best, but think about that for a second. It might not be. So think about from a human perspective. If you take me or yourself, like the viewer, think of yourself being taken out of your home and thrown into the Amazon jungle, the wild, right? Or Africa, where humanity like arose from. You'd be way out of your element. The parasites, the food, the bacteria, everything would be wrong for you. The sun exposure, right? We have adapted as human beings to live in the environments that our predecessors grew up in. Leopard geckos have been bred in captivity for 40 years. They've grown up in a certain way. They've benefited off of certain ways that we keep them in captivity. And so even though it's nice to consider the fact that like they live in groups, in tunnels, in the wild and stuff, that might not be so applicable to captivity where we've sort of isolated them now, and now it's more common to keep them individual instead of in groups. And by the way, in the wild, if a gecko wanders into a group and is not accepted, it can wander out. But in captivity,
that was the point.
You have a gecko in a group, you have to check it the next morning or the next day to make sure that there's no fighting going on. And if they happen to fight really bad in the middle of the night, then you lose out because there's nothing you could have done. They were fighting in the middle of the night. That gecko can't necessarily get away. So
because sometimes they don't just like leave each other alone when they just separate. Sometimes they follow each other. Like especially the males, when they lock in, they're locked in, and
males want to breed, man.
They're on the hunt. They will follow you all around. I've seen some females drag a male. He's just locked onto the back. He just keeps dragging him around. He's just holding on, not letting go. So
Yeah,
just because they have a big enough space sometimes doesn't mean it's big enough for them to get away. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
that's where I see your point. Yeah, we try to replicate that as best as we can, but in captivity, it's always going to be different than the wild. They
Yeah,
always have more free will, obviously, in the wild to go about their day and run away 5 miles away and go find another home or
yeah.
another scenario for themselves versus here where they can't and they just kind of have to deal with what they have to deal with. So always try to make it the best you can. That's pretty much the point of all this. Every conversation we have about this, guys, just make it the best you can for these baby little geckos. They're sweet, they're awesome, they're funny. If you pay attention to them and not just keep them for monetary use, they are pretty cool. Like, lots of personality. My favorite thing, dude, about them is when you open the tub and they're like doing something, they just
Yeah.
back in on you and then crawl towards you and then crawl up in your hand and then just kind of hang out.
I saw that you liked that photo I posted on Instagram today where the one gecko's looking up at its owner. So sometimes
Yeah,
our customers will send us photos back and I'll just repost them because they're cute. And I was like, perfect example of what the
no, it is.
personality of a leopard gecko. That's what they do. They're amazing.
Once they lock in on you too, it's fun. Now, the one time I don't like that, because there is a time I don't like that, is
Yeah.
when I'm trying to breed them, and the male, for some reason, he's halfway there. Some reason sees me outside the tub and decides to lock in on me, and tries to breed me. So he literally will leave the female.
Oh, interesting.
He will strut across the tub,
Yeah.
climb out looking at me, and come after me to I don't either to get me away or try to breed me. I don't know what the his situation is, but every time I'm like, "What are you doing, dude?" I gotta turn him around, put him, excuse me, put him back in there. But I have a couple males that'll do that. I have to like make sure I'm out of view and just still kind of like look from the side and make sure they locked. But if I'm in
Yeah.
view and I'm like, say, like I'm just kind of leaving them there while I do something else, even if he sees me move, I'll turn around. He'll be like hanging out the tub looking at me. And I'm like, bro, I'm not the one you need to focus on. Go over there.
Well, their smell must be so good because I'm sure you've experienced this where as soon as you drop in a male, his tail is rattling like almost immediately if he knows that girl is fertile in some cases. And I'm just like, how do you know that quickly, bud? Like, how do you even know she's a girl right away? How do you know she's ovulating right away? But yeah, I think their smell, the way they sense pheromones. So one time the male must have smelled females that I was cleaning prior, and he did the tail wiggling thing like on my wrist, and I was like, "Oh no, gotta get
Yeah,
you off my wrist,
I
buddy."
had a guy the other day I picked up, and when I looked over, his mouth was like this on my hand. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
like how they
yeah,
start to they do
yeah.
that
He starts trying to
slow
do this, and I
opening
was like,
thing.
no, get back in the tub. But I
Yeah.
just always thought it was wild when they lock in on me. Like I said, they're halfway there. They're biting up the body at the neck, wiggling in, and then just coming for me. And I'm like, whoa. So that's
Yeah.
never happened to you, dude?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty funny when they do that. My
I've
mom,
also had those are kind of like funny bites, right? Because they're not meaning to attack you. But
yeah,
have
yeah,
you ever been attacked hardcore by like a male that's in a state of like hyper aggression and he
uh,
actually like does some damage to you? I've
a
had
little
that.
bit. The other day, I had a bite on my pinky, and I took a photo of it on Instagram. Had blood all over the place, but I had gloves on, so it
Yeah.
made it look like it was bleeding more than it was. But
Yeah.
he got me. He had some stuck shed underneath his bulges and area. So I was trying to
Okay.
get it off, and as I was trying to get it off, he just whipped around and got
Gotcha.
me. And so that's the first time that's ever happened. I've had a couple like headbutt you or tap you with the mouth kind of deal, but they don't actually bite down. Um,
Yeah.
so that was the first one, but yeah, it drew blood a little bit, but it was fine. Nothing crazy.
Yeah. Usually they're not bad, but one out of every like 500 or 1,000 male, like it's only happened to me maybe 2 or 3 geckos out of the couple thousand that I've had over the last couple years where they're just hyper aggressive. And I think you might have seen that video of the gecko that bit the paper towel and it was like
Yeah.
hanging from the paper towel. And I just
So,
had to put him in his cage and wait for him to let go of the paper towel because he was not letting go of the paper towel. So that's what I call a hyper aggressive state. It only happens like once in a blue moon. But
oh
when
yeah,
that happens,
I
if
haven't
they
had
lock
that.
onto you in that condition and they death roll, it's gonna tear some stuff. Yeah.
No, for sure. Because I've only seen one male do that. I tried to breed a pair last year, and the male for some reason immediately grabbed her tail and death rolled and like peeled it like
Mm,
a banana, dude. Just spin
yikes.
around.
Yeah.
It was so it pissed me off, dude, because I was like an $800 gecko, and I was like,
Yeah.
"You not just peel her tail like that, dude. What are you doing?" So yeah, I've had that happen to a gecko, but not to me. So immediately I just had like I usually keep like a pin or like a Sharpie or something, and I will separate them if they're being too aggressive, or the female's not playing with him and doesn't want to be involved. I'll separate them. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, I haven't had that happen. So thank God. I
As
like to
long as
keep.
you're careful, you'll probably, as long as you know the signs to look for. Like, have you seen when males arch their back? Like, that's starting to get into a state of hyper aggression, and the slow
Okay.
tail wag with the arching back. So as long as you're kind of aware of it in
Since
that.
we're talking about gecko behavior, what is this? I don't really know what it is. I assume what it is, but I don't really know. Maybe you know. But the other day I had a mail out, and I was trying to record little videos of geckos. I'm using the same tub, so I'm sure the smells were already in there.
Yeah.
But he was driving me nuts because he wouldn't walk correctly. Like he was dragging his behind and shaking and wagging his tail, but dragging it like he was kind of rubbing his pheromones everywhere. So that's what I
Yeah.
assume he's doing, but I didn't know actually what he's doing. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And come to think of it, I'm trying to think if I've seen a female do that. I
I don't
think
think I
I've only
have.
ever seen males do it.
Yeah,
But yes,
just
I've
males.
seen out of having, out of having a couple thousand geckos in my operation over the last 2 years, I have definitely seen a significant amount of the butt dragging. And I think it's
Yeah.
the same thing that's just my thought. I think it's the same thing you said. I think it's them marking their territory because they smell another male or
It just
something.
reminds me of like a dog, dragging
Yeah,
its ass across the
that's what I
floor.
think it is.
It looks the same way, but the dog is trying to itch its butt, and I don't think the
Right.
gecko's trying to do that. So I was like, "What are you doing?"
Now, thankfully, when they're doing that, that does not automatically mean hyper-aggression,
No, yeah,
but
yeah.
the cat back where they arch
Mhm.
their back and they start to almost square off with you like that.
Yeah, no,
That's
they
what
get
you
into
really
like a
gotta.
side little cat
Yeah. They do
stance.
like the little side. Oh, you gotta watch out for
Yeah,
those.
so I had a male. He did do that. I'll try to pair a female. I put the female in with the males first, and then if it doesn't work, then I'll put the male and the female. So I put
Yeah.
the female in, and immediately the male just arched up and immediately turned to the side. And I just had to watch him, so I had the pin ready. Like, don't you do it?
I know.
But then like it's like hydraulics. Like he goes up, and then he slowly comes down, and
Yeah,
then the tail starts rattling, and you're like,
it is
all right,
kind of funny.
you're calming down, dude. Relax, But then you look at the female, her tail's just, you're like, oh,
Oh,
she's.
yeah. Yeah.
So but sometimes I think they really do pay attention to each other, because I think that scares the females. It's not because I don't want to breed right now or whatever. I think if he didn't do that before, when she went in there, she wouldn't react like that. Because I've had some that have done that, and then I tested it out, and yeah, they didn't react that way. So I think it's kind of like she got scared, like, oh, hey, he was a little too aggressive. I don't want nothing to do with this anymore.
Right,
So
right.
she's not even going to try to calm down. She's not going to allow any nips or anything like that. And so
Yeah. It could
I don't know.
be.
Have you noticed that?
Um,
You ran into that?
I it's yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I've seen a lot of females that reject males, but I never like made a document in my head if they were rejecting the male based off of his behavior. I would just put them together, and if he's not, sometimes the males are not very fruitful. They don't want to breed, and the female's ready. She's like, "Take me, I'm ready to go,"
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
male just won't do it. So sometimes there's the opposite problem. But yeah, you might be onto something with that. I can't think of. It's been 3 to 4 years since I've watched geckos breed, because when I first started breeding in like 2018, 2019, 2020, I was watching the geckos wholeheartedly, and then as soon as they were
Well, yeah,
done, I
that's
would
good
remove them.
for
But then
so many.
after that I started doing like overnight pairing or 3-day
Yeah,
pairing if a male was breeding with a group of females. So I stopped like observing that behavior particularly. But you might be onto something with if he reacts aggressive right off the start, that might turn her off, because she probably has some level of self-preservation, and she knows that he's bigger than her, he's stronger than her. Males have bigger heads and stronger mouths and all kinds of stuff.
They're
You know?
quick.
So,
I mean, the females, don't get me wrong, the females, they're nothing to play with when they want to react. You know what I mean?
right.
So it really depends on the girls, because I've seen a girl flick with her tail a gecko across the tub before, and I was like, whoa, he's out of here. Like, it was insane. And she just, like, it wasn't like a crazy tail swipe. She just flicked it up a little bit, and this dude flew across the tub.
Wow,
So
I've never seen that.
the female sometimes will have some strength to them, man. And I've seen, so like, I just had one. This was a trippy thing for me today. I was repairing a gecko, and the male was finished. He was relieving himself. You know how they do the little licky licky before they're done. And as he's doing that, she's on his neck doing the twitch on his neck. And
interesting.
I was like, what are you doing? Like, that's his job. Why are you twitching? It threw me off because I was like, that's not a male. I was like, that's not a male. What are you doing? It really freaked me out for a moment because I was like, did I just mess up and put two males together? No way. But I've never seen a female do that. So they were already done. She was calm the whole time, let him do his thing. But then when he was done, she grabbed his neck and was doing the little twitch. And I had to separate them. So when I tried to take her away, she wouldn't let go. I had to like take the pin and was like, yo, come on, let go of him. And then she let
Maybe
go.
that was her telling him to get out of her territory.
She was in his,
huh?
though. She
was in his.
Yeah.
Maybe she was scared because she knew it wasn't her established territory, because she's never she's never pheromoned that place, and she just bred with this male, and she wants to warn him like, hey, don't get any crazy ideas of attacking me.
Like, you're mine now. You better not check no other hoes.
Or that.
That's funny, dude. Well, shoot, my man. You got any other topics? Because I'm about to ready to wrap it up.
Let me look.
Something else
we can
bring to the table.
Yeah, I'd love to do another video with you in the future and just cover other things. So I think we can definitely save some topics for the future as well.
More days to come.
But you did specifically mention taxes before this episode. You did not?
I specifically told you I did not want to mention taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, because I do pay taxes. I do think that if somebody is starting, well, okay. By the way, most people in the reptile hobby do not register as an LLC or a sole proprietor. And the benefit of that is obviously the government is not going to come after you for taxes. The non-benefit of that is if they see thousands and tens of thousands of dollars moving through your bank account, and one day they do want to audit you or something, then you might be back taxed for years that you for all of that income from the past, you know. But the real benefit, and I'm glad I tackled this early on when I first started really selling a lot of animals, is if you have an LLC or a sole proprietorship, it costs about like $500 sometimes dollars to set it up, but you could pay for a company. Like I use a company called Inc. Authority. They'll set it up for you. They'll do all the paperwork for you. All you got to do is pay them like $500 up front and then $300 a year after that. And then you need to hire an accountant. But what an accountant will do is, if you keep track of all of your expenses. So I did a video a couple years back showing how we had like $150,000 worth of expenses and we had like $100,000 worth of revenue. So our expenses was $50,000 greater than our revenue. And as an LLC, what that allows you to do is whatever money you and your spouse are making, like whoever your significant other is, if they have a job and they're getting taxes from their job, the extra expenses that your business is eating into your guys's into the business and whatnot, that's going to roll over into your personal lives. So if your business is losing
the business from personal,
the business will be separate, but an LLC and a sole proprietorship, the finality of whatever that is. So we were 50 grand in the hole from that taxable year. That 50 grand now rolls over into me and my wife's earnings from her job. And that gets deducted on some level from her taxable income. So all of the taxes that she was paying throughout the year out of her paychecks, you might get some of that money back because of the losses that your business took. So that's the benefit to recording taxes and going the legitimate route is you can record your expenses. But if you don't have an LLC, you can't record your expenses and you can't record any write-offs to potentially get money back.
Especially because, like I was telling you, we're always going to be spending more than we're going to make. I don't know anybody making more than what they spend to keep their operation going. Maybe somebody very small or something like that, but anybody doing it semi part-time or kind of middle to small scale, definitely, yeah. So.
Well, okay, so I'll say that in closing too is what a lot of people don't realize when they get into the investment side of reptiles, and this applies to all reptiles, including leopard geckos and ball pythons, which are two investment heavy areas of our hobby, is let's say this year you invest $1,000 into a male and a female. Let's just keep it simple. A $500 male and a $500 female. Let's say it takes them a year and a half. Let's say it takes them another year before they're breeding. By the following year, the value of those two animals has already dropped by more than 50%. And your competitors, the people that sold you those geckos and other people who have been in the hobby longer than you, they're already 2 to 3 seasons ahead of you as far as the quality goes of those animals. So now when you're producing babies from those animals, you can only sell them for 25 to 50% of what you invested in a year prior. And that's what, and the other thing on top of that is, if you want to stay relevant with the highest of the highest end, you also have to be investing at the same time. So not only does the value of your projects drop by more than 50% each year, but you also have to spend thousands of dollars to bring your projects to a somewhat competitive level of where the top contenders are in your hobby. And a lot of people don't realize that whole balancing act, which can be tough to balance. And then they're not selling animals. They're not making money. They're losing money. They get tired and burned out. So like you encourage people to do, if you can keep your part-time job, keep your full-time job, start to get a feel for what you can reasonably sell animals for on a consistent basis. Once you have a couple years down to see that, okay, I'm not one of the big guys. I can't sell an animal for $1,000 consistently, but maybe I could sell that animal for $200 consistently a few times a month or whatever. You can start to get an idea of how much money can I make consistently from people who are following my brand. And then you could start to be like, okay, I can pull back from my full-time job or pull back a little bit from my part-time job once the finances are consistent. But if you try to expect that the finances are going to be consistent right from the get-go, that's where people really run into disappointing issues. Yeah. And that's what happened with the big crash of the ball python market in 2020. Everybody was using their stimulus checks to get rich. They were seeing that ball pythons sell for thousands of dollars. So, hey, if I buy ball pythons, if I take my retirement savings of 50 grand and buy 50 grand worth of ball pythons, I will make 200 grand off that next year. And it just does not work that way. It's a very tricky, it's a very tricky hobby to balance making revenue in. And so don't expect that you're going to be making money until you actually are making the money and you start to see it flowing consistently. Consistency is the key, because I told you this the other day. If you make a $20,000 sale tomorrow, but then you don't sell any geckos consistently for the next 2 years, that $20,000 is not looking that great anymore. So you have to consider, how much am I able to generate off of reptiles on a consistent basis? I look at it on a month-to-month basis. How much can I make month to month on geckos? Because we pay our mortgage on a month-to-month basis, our electricity on a month-to-month basis, our garbage and utilities and water bill, all of that's paid on a month-to-month basis. So I need to be making enough money to support my living expenses and the business expenses
wrong then,
on a month-to-month basis.
There's months without sales, and I'm just keeping animals alive. So yeah, I'm talking about months. It'd be like 5 months in a row and not a single sale, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 weeks of everybody wants a gecko all of a sudden, and then
yes,
sales
exactly,
are out of nowhere.
and you get really excited, right?
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I can quit my job.
The ball is rolling, and then it rolled all the way down the hill, and you're like, oh my god, back to nothing. And then
that's when people quit their jobs and stuff. They're like, oh dang, I just made my first 5K. I don't need to work this month. But then you don't realize, you don't realize that it's harder to keep that consistency, and then it's even harder to maintain the same value, because like we discussed, $1,000 gecko this year is a $500 gecko next year. The year after that, it's a $200 gecko. The year after that, it's a $50 gecko. So valuation
drive it off the lot.
Really
the value drops. Same thing with everything. Any market,
same thing with everything.
Any business.
That one girl's been climbing behind you for like the last 30 minutes. Oh, she's all on her tail right now. She's 10 toes down.
She needs to get in that lay box.
Yeah. But no, this has been great, man. Like I said, we'll definitely
before we tap out here, I did want to ask you one more thing, and we can kind of close it from that. But what do you, Frank from Geekygecko, want to see in the future of the hobby for yourself, for the hobby, for others? Just something that you don't see now that you possibly want to see in the future.
Well,
it could be anything.
Yeah.
Maybe not anything, but anything.
I am a realist, and what I mean by that is, realistically, breeders are always going to do things different than a keeper who only has 1 or 2 geckos. So there's always going to be a difference between those two worlds. But one of the things that I'm seeing right now is there's new technologies coming into play to where if you want to keep your geckos in a rack-like system, but still provide for them overhead lighting, because the heat and the light and the radiation penetrates into their muscles and their body and feels good for them, and it even has UV. Those technologies are now starting to come into the picture, and I think it's not going to be too much longer from now to where we see you see your sea serpents racks in the back, to where we might see something like that has UVB strips along the back so that the animals can get UVB.
A couple of those now, and they look pretty cool. But yeah, definitely, I see what you're saying. It would be cool if it was more common, but there's probably going to be so expensive.
At first there are going to be
everybody to get them for real.
And that's what I mean by me being a realist. So in the meantime, while technology improves, it would it would be nice, I think, if breeders, because not a lot of people are making videos for leopard gecko breeding. So if people wanted to make videos for leopard gecko breeding, if you showed them off in 28 quart tubs and stuff, I think the internet would handle that just fine. But and so I guess the point that I'm getting at is the hobby is definitely moving in a direction to where people don't want to see subpar conditions, and they don't want to see low standards. And I know that it's not reasonable for breeders who have dozens or hundreds of geckos to put every gecko with UVB or heat lights, right? That's not reasonable. But if we as a hobby, even myself, I'm trying to hold myself accountable to this and make changes as I'm able to, getting animals into bigger caging, getting animals into different texture environments, where they can feel rock and they can feel soil and they can all that kind of stuff. I think it would just be fun to see the hobby and videos and content creation evolve in that direction, even for breeders. So keepers have always been doing that, but now I think there's a really high demand.
That's a good point. Pet keepers, they're always showing off better enclosures.
They're always doing
better upgrades, which is awesome. But I think there's always going to be a balance. That's the whole point. You want that customer, you want that person to give that pet the best home. Not saying we're not, but again, we have a lot of animals, and so it's going to be harder to keep every single one in a certain way versus one with a pet owner. So this is a good shout out to the pet owners. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. Keep upgrading tanks, giving these guys the best home you can.
To piggyback off that in closing is, I think the big I don't mean to necessarily cause offense, and I realize that I put myself in a position where I overgrew myself to the point where I had to downsize the size of the enclosure that I was keeping animals in, way smaller than I would like to see them in. And that's not something I'm happy with, and that's not something I'm happy about. So it's my personal goal to now upgrade and upsize as I am decreasing the amount of animals that I have, increase the enrichment and quality of size of enclosure and stuff that I could keep every individual animal in. But one thing that I think this will always exist is like the big wholesalers and the animal flippers and the people that keep in very, very subpar conditions. Those people will always exist, and they will always never show you behind the scenes because they know it looks horrible. So those people will always exist. But people who do want to see animals in better care and be able to like be somewhat prideful and proud of being able to show what's going on in your operation and just pull out a gecko or a snake at will, those people are making changes. And we saw that with Brian Barczyk. And one of the things that he said a few years back was, the most unhappiest people that I've ever known are the biggest wholesalers. The people that are just flipping animals from very low par conditions. There's not a lot of enrichment for the animals. He's like, those are the most unhappy people I've seen. And he made it a personal goal of his to where, I don't know if you saw recently, but they're now selling BHB. So BHB will completely be out of the works, and the only legacy he's going to have now is his aquarium and the reptarium. So he really went all the way to the wall where he's not even really breeding anymore. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't breed, because we need to breed animals. But his passion of seeing animals in better quality conditions was so much to the point where he was willing to stop breeding for that. So think of that for yourself. Not everybody has to be a breeder.
So I was just going to say something similar. Like, all keepers are not breeders, but all breeders are still keepers. And so even though you're a breeder, you're still a keeper. And the way you keep your tubs still matters. So I would prefer, we don't have to keep them so sterile. We do it to quarantine and all that good stuff, and we are breeding. So once they're quarantined and everything's good, there is no issue with setting these guys up with substrate and making it look like a tank. It's just in a tub. It's just a different container, pretty much. But there's no reason why we can't, except sometimes it can be expensive. I ain't gonna lie. So I told you before, I did it for 1 year, and I was like, I ain't gonna lie, this is pretty expensive to keep doing it every single time, especially with getting more animals. So I'm gonna find my balance. I've seen like Tiki's Geckos kind of did like the mulch and stuff. So there's other alternatives to do things, instead of having to buy the expensive bags and stuff like that, So I'll find my own mixture one day. But it's definitely nice to see them still kept like they're in tanks and aquariums, because they're still roaming around in there. They still got to live and do their things and have some type of enrichment to live and be happy themselves, for the most part. So like I said, not all keepers are breeders, but as breeders, we are keepers, and you should still keep as good as you can.
Were you using Reptisoil back then when you were
doing excavator clay, Reptisoil, and topsoil? And that excavator clay is kind of expensive.
It is expensive, the excavator clay. So some alternatives to that, which I'm sure you know, but I'll let the audience know too, is if you go to Home Depot, there's the 10-pound bags of washed play sand for $5 a piece. That could be somewhat comparable to the excavator clay as far as like
that was mixed in there too. It was excavator clay, play sand, and Reptisoil.
Yeah. But you never used the big bags of peat moss, did you? Because Home Depot has those giant bags of peat moss that spreads a long way, and it's so cheap for like how far it actually spreads.
No, I've
So
never
that's
used
something
it, so
to
I
do.
might
Yeah,
try it.
it is a little dusty when it dries, but I think if you're misting down the enclosure somewhat throughout the
How about
week,
the
I
green
think
one,
it'll
right?
the what?
The green one? It's like
Yep, the
green.
green
Yeah, the
and
green
white
one
one that
is
says
dusty.
organic.
Right.
Always make sure it's organic, because obviously if you get the one with fertilizer in it, your animals are literally in chemicals, and
Subject
you don't
to
want,
chemicals, yeah.
subject to chemicals, and you don't want that. So, but yeah, just in closing, Brian Barczyk made a huge downsizing play. Kevin McCurley from Nerd, which was one of those giant operations, he's been pretty vocal about him downsizing, and I'm downsizing. I think there's just something to the state that the hobby is moving into, is just a state where we want to get back to reptiles aren't revenue. Like in 2020, reptiles became revenue, and that was on everybody's mind. That was like what people were focused on and thinking about. But reptiles are our friends. They're our pets. They can be revenue, and they can make you a lot of money. But if you're cutting corners to do that, I can tell you, number one, it's probably not going to work. And number two, you're probably not going to get enrichment out of that. So not only will your animals not be enriched, but you won't be enriched. And so I'm bringing myself back to a balance where I could feel good about the animals. I feel like the animals could feel good in their enclosure and their environment. And then I could get back to like making more videos and doing content, which is something I really enjoy. But I think I told you, it's just been taking so much time right now, photographing animals, downsizing, making improvements, all that kind of stuff. It's been taking a lot of time, but I do look forward to getting back onto the consistent content trend, because I feel like that's missing for leopard geckos right now. And so whoever wants to make consistent leopard gecko content and collaborate, I think that's good. In closing, take a lesson from me. Drama does not build bridges. And as much as you can, try not to.
It's entertaining for sure.
It's entertaining 100%. There's a part of me that is tempted that when juicy gossip or news comes out, I'm like, I want to make a video on this, but I have to literally stop myself from doing that, because what's going to grow your brand? Remember, you're not selling your entertainment, because that makes no money in the reptile hobby. The only people making money off YouTube videos in the reptile hobby are like what's his name? Blanking right now. The Canadian.
Wiccan's reptiles.
Yeah, Wiccan's reptiles. And the other people like Dave Kaufman. There's this new guy. I think his channel name is like Greenhouse Pets or Green Room Pythons or something like that. Those people that are like pet-centered content where they're getting tens of thousands of views on long-form content videos, which is horizontal videos, those people are making some money. It might not be enough to sustain a family and a career, but they're probably making decent money. But people like us that are going viral off short videos, like a lot of my followers came from shorts that went viral. Those aren't paying you anything. You're not making any money off that. So we are not making money off of our virality in the leopard gecko hobby. We are making money off of our customer service and selling animals and maintaining a reputable name and all that kind of stuff. So you need to do what you need to do to like promote those things. And when you start talking behind people's backs and you start attacking people and you start building what is it, when what was it,
tension?
Yeah, when you start causing dissension, it does not help your brand, and it does not help our community to actually bring more people in and bring more customers in and more excitable hobbyists in. It doesn't help. And so I know that
people go away.
Yeah, people go away. And so that's what I really appreciate about what you're trying to do. Is I feel like anytime I call you on the phone, I feel like you have your hand in like everybody's business, so to speak. So I don't need to keep track of everybody. I could just call you and I could just be like, so what's the news? Like, what's going on in the hobby? And it's like, you have an update. you know what's happening, you know what's going on. But yeah, positivity, guys, especially I know, yeah, I know private groups will always exist, right? Private friend groups where people kind of throw jabs at each other or at other people, but especially publicly, take a lesson from me. Critiquing others publicly and burning bridges publicly is not going to build your brand. It is just not.
Nah, so when we're on those phone calls, what is something I always say to you is that I rather just show off the positivity that I'm doing or whatever somebody else is doing versus the negativity or what they're doing wrong. I rather just talk about what we're doing right or what we can do or something better. I rather just show off what we're doing versus what other people aren't doing correctly or whatever. It's just kind of like, all right, there's no need to, dial into that and berate you for it. I mean, if people can help, and that's cool. If they're open to opinions and critique and stuff, and that's fine. But some people are not, and they're gonna be how they want to be. So I just like to stick to showing off the good that we do and what we can do, and focus on our own brand, like you said, and just market yourself and just kind of keep being good.
Because just a reminder, I know that you told me when we first started having a conversation, one of the things that stuck out to me, I don't know why, but sometimes I remember little things like this, where you were like, I know Frank's never going to quit, because I heard him say something one time that makes sense, which is every single day there's a 7-year-old boy or girl about to turn 8 and they're about to ask for their first leopard gecko. If we can keep that crowd in mind, like anything that you wouldn't say to an 8-year-old, try not to say that to another breeder, because even if you might have a criticism of something that you really like, I'll be honest, there are some things that breeders do that I really want to like call out or harp on.
Oh, for sure, we all do. But
if you do that,
there's no point.
Yeah, if you do that, you will burn bridges. You will divide the community. And so the approach that I'm taking now is just to focus on the animals, to focus on creating positive content that is not necessarily like calling people out, but just promoting the animals, and trying to focus on collaboration, where collaboration can be made for people who mutually want to see people encouraged and built up in this community. Because there's plenty of new people coming in that we can retain and that will stay for a long period of time and that will collaborate and that are interested in spending a lot of money and buying a lot of geckos. But the more fighting is going on and backbiting and things like that, that drives people away, the more that is going to just drive people away, and cause for dissension.
So in summary, stay positive, my boys and girls. All right. Be nice to your animals and be nice to everybody else. It'll benefit you a lot more in the long run.
Sounds corny, but it's worth it.
It's very corny, but sometimes corny works,
Yeah, it'll improve if it improves your business. If it'll make you more money and improve your business, not sounding that corny anymore, right? So like it's worth it,
But with that being said, guys, appreciate everybody for tuning in and hanging out with me and Frank today. Frank, how do you feel about the episode? Feel good?
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, man. I'm glad that we
I didn't like that pause.
No, I'm always a thinker. I'm always thinking like, what do I want to say? What do I want to attach to that? You know me, I talk. I like to talk. But no, I'm really glad to be friends with you, brother. I'm really glad what your goal is with this channel. I'm excited to see you bring on other breeders and just allow for people in our hobby to speak on their expertise, right? You brought on Tiki's Geckos before. He's another great guy to look. If you're getting into content creation, selling animals, humor, like all of those kinds of things, he's a great he's a great person to follow. Got great animals. He's been in, even though he's young, he's been in for a very long time, and he's been very successful at what he does.
It's just the stress, guys. That's all it is.
So I look forward to seeing who else you bring on, and I like what you're doing, man.
Appreciate that, my man. Well, that's gonna be the end of it for tonight. So I appreciate you for coming on again. Shout out to everybody who tuned in tonight live, and stay tuned for the next episode. There is no announcement for it. It'll happen when it happens. So be ready for it. So follow, like, subscribe, whatever, comment, hit us with questions and all that good stuff. But everybody else have a good night, and we'll see you next time.